Each year, Americans are conned out of $40 billion through investment fraud. Pat Huddleston spent years tracking these thieves at the SEC, and he's written a book called The Vigilant Investor. Pat, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Jack. Good to be here.
So you write that the individual investor cannot count on regulators to protect them from people such as Bernie Madoff. I would think that's the regulator's job.
Well, they do a good job. The scam they shut down today cannot take advantage of somebody tomorrow, but think of it this way. The enforcers don't have jurisdiction until somebody has been hurt. It's like the homicide detective. He comes and looks at the body under the sheet, and he may bring someone to justice, but he's not raising that body to life. Same with the SEC. Somebody takes your money, they can bring them to justice, but very likely they're not unscrambling that nest egg. So your goal has to be prevention.
And we should explain right up front that this isn't something where just dupes get taken. Very smart people can get taken advantage of.
Exactly. I have represented multimillionaires all the way down to blue-collar retirees, and they were all smart people. They all had one thing in common. They thought they were too smart for it to happen to them. It's just a human tendency that we have, Jack, and we all tend to fall for it.
Now, why are we hardwired to accept a scammer's claims?
Well, we have these cognitive biases, and the CIA actually teaches its analysts about this. They help us in most contexts. And so these things our brains are optimized to pick up things quickly and make decisions efficiently. The problem is that in the investment context, efficiency doesn't equal quality. Sometimes you have to slow down and take a little more time than your brain is usually going to give you.
Now, you write something that's kind of scary in the book. It's that after Bernie Madoff, investment fraud might actually be harder to spot. Why is that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can see even in a scam that started in the 70s, he had Frank DePasquale and other people creating phony records to support the scam. Now, just think about how technology has advanced since then. It is so much easier now to create a phony statement. In my days at the SEC, you used a scissor and tape to do that. Now they can make something that looks absolutely pristine. Also, people remember that number that they once knew that they needed to reach in order to have a comfortable retirement. Well, we all got knocked back several steps in 2008, but they still remember that number, and they long for it. They fear that they'll never reach it, and scam artists take advantage of that and tell them, hey, I can help you get there still.
Wow, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how investors can protect themselves.
Sure.
What do you think are the three most important things an investor can do?
I would say number one, probably know who you're writing your check to. Never write the check for your investment to the broker or to a company that he owns. It needs to be to an independent third-party custodian. People use TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, Schwab, something like that. You have to be careful, otherwise so they can just take your money and leave. Another thing I tell people is you have to look for fraud. When you're doing your investigation, don't look for legitimacy, because that's just going to lead you into the hands of some criminal cohorts. You have to look for the fraud. Use websites like Pacer, PACER.gov, to look for prior lawsuits, bankruptcies, or criminal violations.
So in other words, anytime, be skeptical of the person no matter how nice he is.
He could be your brother or your brother-in-law. You still need to do this search, and it just has to be a discipline, and you will be shocked how often you find it. And then the third thing I would say is you need to call your state securities regulator to make sure the person trying to sell you something is licensed to sell it. Now, the state securities commissioner in every state is a division of the Secretary of State's office. So if people go to that government section or their phone book, look for the Secretary of State's office. The securities commissioner will be underneath there. And if you find that somebody who's trying to sell you something is not licensed, please, please, not only stay away from it, but tell those securities regulators that there's somebody unlicensed out there selling, because then we come back to the regulators. They can shut it down today so it doesn't take advantage of somebody tomorrow.
And finally, one very legal point, but yet it's close to the personal finance journalist's heart. In your book, you warn people away from variable annuities. Now, these are not criminal, but can you explain to us why they're not so good?
They're not so good. They're very high cost. They pay enormous commissions. There is nothing a broker can sell you that will pay him a bigger commission than a variable annuity, and that's why they get sold. They are absolutely fundamentally unsuitable for people nearing retirement or in retirement, and yet they get sold over and over. I've got one case now for a 90-year-old who was sold 2 variable annuities. She has no business having them, nor does any retiree, but they get sold because they pay a lot of commissions.
Well, thanks very much, Pat.
My pleasure, Jack.
You can find more investing advice right here on CBSMoneyWatch.com.